when you made this pivot and went to that, was there anything, were you holding on to any hope that you could come back to flying, or was that completely off the table?
So that was, they had given me offers to be like a squadron maintenance officer or like an air traffic controller or things that kept me close to the flight line, but I just couldn't. I realized, saw this in myself. I said, if I'm not wiggling sticks, I don't want to be on the flight line. And some guys did. A lot of guys didn't. We had guys that came out for whatever reason and they redesed and they stayed with the squadrons. I couldn't. And so then I was very fortunate, redesed into Comstrat, and did within a month of finishing that transition school, I was in Kuwait. I was doing something that I had never done before, but what was setting me up for something that I truly love, which is speaking and motivational speaking. And hey, your life is going to have hard transitions, so make the most of it, right? Grow where you're planted. And I got to work with the media liaison team for all of Combined Joint Task Force Operation Inherent Resolve.
Welcome to the Transition Drill Podcast. I'm your host, Paul Pantiani. I appreciate you taking the time to watch. So let's get into this.
Because
all she's going to do is say, I'm married to you. My life is perfect. So what else is she going to say?
Then it can be a short episode.
There you go. It'll be the first 30-second podcast.
It could be a transition drill swag. Like you just have her in the hoodie, have her drinking a cup of coffee with the transition drill logo on it. Look real pretty, and hey, boom, there you go.
I'll just put my face on her shirt and she could just, I'm married to him. Next.
Perfect. I see no problems with this plan.
So now that I've completely lost control of my podcast, where else are we going with your podcast now? What are we going to talk about next? Because we aren't going to be able to compete with hair. You've got me on that one.
Hey, look, I got to say, both my father and my father-in-law rep that exact same haircut, and you wear it very well. Those
of us that rep it don't have a choice. I firmly believe 99.9% of the fully bald men out there didn't wake up one morning and just go, I am sick and tired of having to wash and dry my hair. I'm going to shave it all off.
Shampoo is cutting into my budget.
It is. It's way too expensive. I am spending way too much time combing my hair each day. I don't want it anymore. We just don't have a choice. So,
well,
embrace yours and enjoy yours while you still have it.
Well, every single day. Well, so the pink mohawk actually came as a result of our gender reveal. So Shannon and I went from knowing...
You revealed that you're a female?
No. Our unborn daughters.
Oh, got it.
So background on Shannon and I, we met March of 2022. She moved in August of 2022. We got engaged in October of 22, married for the first time in December of 22, then married 2 more times in 2023, and then found out that she was going to have our first baby with
Dude, you got her to marry you 3 times?
I did. She's extremely smart.
Damn, you're good.
I questioned her judgment.
We weren't going to go down that route. I was staying with the fact that you're really good that you got her to marry you 3 times.
Yeah, let's go with that. I appreciate the positive.
Salesmanship. You've got to go the salesmanship route.
Right. Hey, this is good mentorship for me. I'm learning. I'm refining my technique. But what we did was we looked at all of kind of the ways that people had done it before, and we
slide down this way a little bit. I just don't want you to be out of the camera. I want everybody to not lose that great image of you. I appreciate the fact that you're so relaxed that you're just leaning back, but I think you're starting to get to the point where you might lean out of the shot.
Right out of the cockpit. And so we looked at a couple of different options and said, okay, what haven't we seen before? And so what she did, she found out. So for about 3-4 hours before she told me or any of the other family, because we were with her parents at the time, she just had to hold this information in. And I said, well, what if we dye my mohawk? I'll blindfold, dye the mohawk, and then I'll unblindfold. You can show the parents at the same time. And that's what we did. And it was absolutely hilarious. We'll share the Instagram reel because it goes through the whole process, and it's absolutely the most precious thing you've ever seen. So, and that's first baby girl on the way.
Sweet. So let's get more into you. The whole point of this podcast is transition.
Okay.
You're literally just transitioned out of the military.
Yes. So got out of the Marine Corps June 1st, 2023. I think we're into July right now.
How many years total?
11 active, did 4 years ROTC before that, and then 2.5, 3 years of JROTC with a program called the Sea Cadets. So
you didn't know early on that you were going in the military as a kid, did you?
My biological grandfather, when I was 10 years old, he was prior Air Force, James Morris, and he took me to an air show when I was 10. And we're walking around the flight line, everything, giant-eyed little boy. And there was a Cobra, an AH-1 whiskey Cobra parked on the flight line. And
not cool at all.
The turret, the three barrel Gatling cannon, was about eye level with me. And I'm looking down this, I didn't know what it was. I'm holding his hand, and I said, that. In my little cowboy brain, that I'm going to do that someday. And it wasn't just a few months after that my grandpa passed. So you want to talk about internal motivation for life. Essentially, as soon as I could, I said, I'm going to fly. And I did that. I joined the Sea Cadets when I turned 15. I did every single one of their aviation training programs. Graduated high school in 2008, went into the Corps Cadets at Texas A&M. Actually didn't go on a contract. So if you're Corps of Cadets, you can do what they refer to as the leadership program. So you can do all 4 years as a cadet. You can get enthusiastically trained for 4 years and graduate and not go in the military. Actually, as of last year, the percentage switched. So it was always a majority of people commissioned. For the first time, it's switched, and now you have more that are not commissioning because the Corps has grown so much. Check my stats, but it's over 3,000 cadets in the Corps of Cadets at Texas A&M now. When I graduated, we were just over 2,100. So in just over a decade, it's grown by over 1,000 or almost 1,000.
What's the benefit of going through that program? And this sounds in my head as I'm asking this. Why would someone go through that program and not commission?
Because of really good salesmen. So the Corps of Cadets is not a military organization. It's a student organization. And although it started that way in the 1870s, Texas A&M was a Texas land grant military college. You went to Texas A&M to commission as an officer in the Army. And it wasn't until after World War II that changed. So you could go to the college and just go to college because there were so many active duty that went into the military and came back after using the GI Bill, but they had already served. So there was no reason for them to go. So today you finish the Corps of Cadets, and you graduate with a certificate of leadership, which when you're a freshman joining, it's wow, I have a certificate from the Corps. For anyone who is on the fence of if this is going to be the thing that they want to do, my encouragement to you is, if you want to join the military, if you want to commission as an officer in any branch of service, with the exception of the Coast Guard, because you have to commission through the Coast Guard Academy, that's why you should do ROTC. I don't necessarily encourage you to go through all of that and not commission, because your college is different. I wore a uniform every single day. I did a march in every single weekend. And so I was ready, or better prepared as one can be, to commission. when you leave the Corps, if you are not going to commission, you are going to enter into a world of civilians who don't operate that way. And you are going to have to adjust everything that you have just spent 4 years learning and getting very good at, and learning good traits, discipline, leadership, communication, decisiveness. Those are great things that you learn as a cadet. But maybe your experience as a, air quotes, regular college student could benefit you more. But I did commission. What I learned in the Corps was extremely valuable. After finishing my freshman year in the Corps of Cadets and then going to OCS, Officer Candidate School, OCS was significantly less challenging because I had survived a lot of other things that were very character building. So all of that to say, the transition from cadet to active duty Marine was made easier by the training that I got as a cadet at Texas A&M.
Let's go back to that little boy who first saw the Cobra. Okay. Where's hometown? Where'd you grow up?
I was born and raised in Cleburne, Texas, about an hour outside of Fort Worth. We had a semi-working cattle ranch for a long time. So the joke is I went to college and joined the Marine Corps because I needed to get away from the ranch. If you ever have the opportunity to build barbed wire fence in Central Texas in July, do it. It's character building.
It's not character building. It's sweat producing. It's blister producing.
Yes. Yes. All of those great things that
the character's low on the list.
If you can do that, you can do just about anything.
Big family, small family?
Yes. So I've got an older sister. Both my parents are still living in Cleburne. Big military family. So we have a warrior wall, and it was up to the late 1800s, 1900s, because I had a great uncle who was actually part of the Cactus Brigade. Cactus Brigade was a Texas formed group that trained with the Texas Rangers. And I've got lineage. Both my biological grandfather, my step grandfather was a Marine. He was the biggest influential factor of joining the Marine Corps. So this man served and survived 2 years in the Pacific in World War II. And when he married my grandmother, there was no option of,
three weddings?
Actually, okay, quick plug for grandma.
He wasn't as good of a salesman as you.
He got my 75-year-old grandmother to marry him in her living room, and then they celebrated in Vegas.
Sweet.
Oh yeah, they were.
Were they married by Elvis?
No, actually, they were married by the neighbor across the street. So, but then they went to Vegas, and the only person that they told that they were doing this was my older sister. They did it, went and partied, came back, and then said, "Oh yeah, we're married now." And these were two people. My grandmother and my biological grandfather were married for over 50 years before he passed. My grandpa George and his wife were married almost 60 years before she passed, and they found each other in their second phase of life.
Wow. Very cool.
Yeah.
Of your brothers and sisters, anybody else serve?
No, my older sister and I, whom I absolutely love, are about as polar opposites as two human beings can be, right? I know I'm going to be a Marine. I'm going to do everything in my life to be the Marine. If it's not black, it's white, period. There's right, there's wrong. There's no gray area in between. My sister is
every shade of gray except black and white.
As free-spirited, as unencumbered, creative thinker who, as soon as she could, was out of the house and living that abroad life. And funny, we went to visit her just like 2 weeks ago as we did the lap around the North America, and we got to do the thing that I promised her that I would do when I got out, And that was, I smoked weed for the first time with my sister. I promised her that when I was 17 years old, and I said, hey, I'm going to go be a straight-laced cadet. And it was just this moment of the transition is real now. Captain Morris is always going to be there, and learn from that, take all of those experiences and build that into building Hop On and Hold On, building Maven's Landing, making sure that I am a good husband and a good father.
But now I can smoke weed and grow a pink mohawk.
Exactly. Right. And so that was, my sister's always been, even though we're very different, she has always been, hey, what are you going through? What shit are you having to deal with now? Right. It's the middle of Arif Jan, Kuwait, and May. It's 117 degrees. This kind of sucks. And she says, well, I love you, but remember, you chose this. So suck it up, buttercup. I'll see you when you get home. By the way, get your ass home. So,
as a young boy, you knew you were going to go military route. What about sports? Were you active in sports?
Mm-hmm. Ranch life was huge. I grew up with a rifle in my hand, and that consisted of being horseback as well. Loved to shoot. Dad was a shooter. Dad still is a shooter. Big plug for a sport called cowboy action shooting. Tennis was fun. Track, cross country.
They lean back quite a bit when they're drawn from the holster.
Okay. That is a different thing. That is cowboy quick draw. It's fun. But Bob Bundon, the greatest speed shooter in the world, said, "Why do you do that? Don't do that. That doesn't look cool. What's the point of shooting? Is to look cool, right?" So, if you're a cowboy fast draw, great. Cowboy action shooting is more like 3-gun.
Okay.
Except you're using real pistols, real rifle, real shotgun, shooting real bullets on real targets. The most fun you can have with your pants on, hands down.
But it's specifically cowboy 3-gun as opposed to traditional or what most people think of. So from the pistol standpoint, does it have to be a revolver?
It does. So single action revolver, pre-1900. Most guys are using .357 Magnums. If you're a traditionalist, you can use a 44-40, 45 long Colt. Pistols have to come from the holsters. It's the only recognized competition shooting sport where you can have 2 loaded revolvers in hand, or 2 loaded handguns in hand at the same time while you're shooting.
Well, it's the only way you're going to get more than 10 rounds on target. Come on.
Hey, it's like Doc Holliday said in Tombstone, I have 2 guns, one for each of you.
That movie is just, the entire movie is a series of one-liners. Probably one of my favorite movies ever.
10 out of 10. Yep. It's a great one.
So shooting was your sporting activity as a kid?
Mm-hmm. Shot as a kid, loved to shoot, and then actually was on the collegiate pistol team at Texas A&M. Very different. Cowboy action, you're moving, you're going from position to position, you're transitioning guns, you're holstering, unholstering, shooting long targets, shotguns, rifles. Collegiate pistol is precision pistol.
What year is this?
I was 2000. I joined the team 2009, shot 10, 11, and was the president in 2012.
I'm just kind of thinking loosely here in California. I doubt there's a California college that has a shooting team. I could be wrong, though.
We're going to have to get the research guys to look at it.
I don't have Jamie. This ain't the Joe Rogan show.
Yeah, Jamie, can you check?
Somebody driving in their car when they're listening to this can Google if there's a California college that has a shooting team. But I mean, I think that's cool. It's something that's different that you don't find everywhere. But then even people talk about going back 15, 20 years ago, and in certain states, high school kids would roll into parking lots with the gun rack in the back window, and it was no big deal for a shotgun to be in the window. Times have changed.
My dad went to the same high school I went to and was in a play. I don't remember what the name of it was, but his character had a rifle. My dad took his 30-30 Marlin, real rifle, and was on stage with it when he performed. The rule from his dad was no one's allowed to touch it. It's yours. You keep it safe. But but that was what happened, right? I carried a handgun in my car when I was 15 because I would go back and forth to the ranch, right? Rattlesnakes, wild dogs, coyotes, might have to put a calf down. It was just life, right? But I also was trained to respect that from the time I could walk.
Right.
Right. So
graduated high school what year?
2008.
And you had actually done junior ROTC through your high school. Does every college or high school in and around where you grew up offer it, or did you have to find a specific high school for it?
No, that's a great question. So the Sea Cadets was not affiliated with any of my high school.
Oh, okay.
The reason that I found Sea Cadets was because my high school did not have a JROTC. Sea Cadets is a Navy-sponsored program. It was great. Even if you have no desire to join the military, I highly encourage the Sea Cadets. It's the equivalent of the Young Marines. There are high schools now that actually have Sea Cadet programs at the schools. You can start. See, when I was a kid, you could start at 12. I think they actually pushed it down to 10. You can join the Young Marines at 6, which blows my mind because you learn all of the same things that you learn when you go to boot camp, right? So imagine being a 6-year-old who knows how to call cadence, drill, weapons safety, learns their leadership principles and traits, learns the orders of a century, right? And then they turn 7, right? That framework of preparedness to go or to do all of that from the time they're 6 to 18 and then say, you know what? I don't want to do this. So just great plugs for two phenomenal organizations for people if they want to get exposure to what a taste of the military will be like.
Well, and you bring up a good point, though. If you started, like anything else, starting your kids young in something that teaches them discipline, attention to detail, working as a member of a team,
yep.
Even if you don't go to the military. We were talking about my wife earlier, and one of the things that she always says is, if I was in charge of hiring somebody and they said they had been a barista at a Starbucks, that tells me not only can they work at as a team and with a team, they can multitask like a mother. You know, when you think about how busy they can be.
Sure.
So it's not necessarily, oh, you're just indoctrinating them to be, no, you're teaching them the skills and attributes that are going to benefit them as adults.
100%. Probably the most important thing that I took away from all of those organizations, and this was the constant in my ear that my grandfather gave me, was you have to get along with people. You have to get along with people because the military as a whole, and I am learning now, corporate is a melting pot. This guy might be from a family very similar to yours. He had good parents. He had a good upbringing. He didn't have to worry about if he was going to eat that night. But you might get somebody who maybe didn't even have parents, who didn't know where their next meal was going to come from. And guess what? When you put those lieutenant bars on, you have to be able to bring those two people together, motivate them, inspire them, and take care of them, right? If one person brings you a problem and you deal with it the way that this person that you dealt with his problem, you're probably not going to get through to him, right? So that's what, again, Sea Cadets was great. Corps Cadets did it a little bit, but learning how to get along with people and then lead people. I don't care if you're a barista at Starbucks or you're a major in the Marine Corps. If you have that social skill, you're light years ahead.
Texas A&M your only option for college?
Kinda. I had applied to the Air Force Academy, applied to Baylor, and applied to Texas Christian University.
You applied to the Air Force Academy and wanted to fly Cobras?
I wanted to fly.
Oh, okay.
I wanted, I'm in the air. As soon as my acceptance letter from A&M came back, I was with my buddy. His name was Tyler. He went to the Corps with me. we opened the letter. We sang the war hymn together, and I honestly don't know what happened to the other applications. Right? They might have come back. They might have got stuck in a drawer somewhere. I don't know.
That was your first choice. That's where you wanted to go.
Yeah. My mom was an Aggie. She was she was a good Aggie, but I'm a bad Aggie right now because I'm not wearing my ring because we're traveling. She didn't wear a ring. The ring at Texas
I've already
A&M,
made the phone call. They're going to be at the door in a little bit, so they'll deal. But they're gonna let me have the whole podcast before they deal with you. So
yeah, right. So the ring at A&M is a tradition that a lot of colleges don't action. It's like, hey, you got your college ring, cool. Thanks. But the reason that the ring at A&M is so powerful is because, and I'm going to put it on as soon as we get back home. So when we go overseas, I've got it. It's
by the time the episode comes out, the ring will have been back on.
It's manifested.
It's AI. I'm sure we can figure out a way to put it on you.
Yeah, right. The reason is because you can go anywhere. It's like seeing, I don't know. It's like seeing a Marine Corps tattoo on somebody. You don't have to go through that awkward phase of, hey, who are you? You look and you say, you're an Aggie. We are immediately connected. And it just happens. A&M is as much of a cult as the Marine Corps is. And I mean that in the best of way. So, yeah, I didn't have a choice.
But with the family being in ranching,
Mm-hmm.
was there any push for you to kind of break, I'll call it the lineage of military service, and stay home and continue with the ranching life?
Timing happened such that right as I was getting ready to leave, we sold out the cattle because both of my parents were actually full-time teachers. So my mom taught for over 40 years. My dad taught for over 25 years. And doing that full-time, you couldn't do both, right? And so when I was coming of age and said, well, you know what, I think I'm going to join the military. I'm just going to enlist. My mom said, no, you're not. I said, well, yeah, I'm just going to go. No, you're not. And I said, well, okay, but I still want to have this experience. And she said, good, you can go to A&M, you can join the Corps.
Was she thinking that would be it, your 4 years and you'd be done?
She knew better than that.
But in her mind, that's what she was thinking.
Sure. You want to talk to an interesting human being, you need to get my mom on this podcast. She, when I was 15 and I told the family, I'm going to go try this Sea Cadet thing. I was with her dad, my grandfather, in their living room. And I didn't know this until I was in my late 20s. My grandpa told my mom, he said, he's going to be in the military. And my mom said, no, he's just going to go try this. He's going to go do the Sea Cadets. He's going to see what he likes. And no, he's going to go in.
Putting it in perspective, though, you joined the Sea Cadets in what year?
Let's see. I was 15, so that was 2005.
So from a parent's point of view, you start expressing an interest in going in the military, and we are at almost the virtual height of conflict in the Middle East.
Yeah.
With, even at that time, no obvious exit strategy or end time. I could see as a parent kind of going, yeah, maybe not.
So I had that conversation with my mom. I don't remember exactly when this was, but I think it was right before I signed the papers to go as an air contract in the Marine Corps. And it was emotional. And I looked her in the eye and said, Ma, Dad has taught me everything he can teach me. You have taught me everything that you can teach me. There's no one in the world that I want to protect you more than I want to protect you. So let me go learn how to protect you. And after that, she said, okay. And we've had the conversation also of, Ma, there's going to be stuff that we can't talk about. And I don't mean I got to go do super secret squirrel stuff, but I mean, there's going to be things that if I tell you, it's going to be harder on you than if I just say, I love you and I need you to love me back.
Well, that ties into something that I've been striving with this podcast. Obviously, the backbone is the importance of preparing for your transition, but the equal importance of dealing with mental health or the Rubik's Cube between your ears today and keeping your body in as good a condition as it can. And there is that teeter-totter balancing act that you have to do with your family. If you're in the veteran community, the first responder community, is we experience stuff that 99.9% of the population doesn't realize people can be that bad. Or in your case, war is not pretty. There's no way to make real war look pretty. But then to not be able to come home and go, hey, you know what I experienced? Right. Without traumatizing your family members. Right. And so it's a weird balancing act that's got to, because you want to share with your family and you need to have that outlet to share. But at the same token, you can't give them everything.
I consider myself blessed. To my knowledge, no action that I took when I was in the service resulted in another human losing their life. And I was in for 11 years. My peers, my colleagues, my friends who did have to do that confided in me that there is something real that changes, right? And the best thing you can do is if someone is vulnerable enough to confide that in you, just take it. You don't have to know what they're going through personally to be a support system for them. Even if that's just sitting on the couch with them and listening, right? Or, are you home alone right now? How about I come over? Or, are you home alone right now? I'm coming over.
Right.
Right. And something super special for me, Shannon's prior, right? My wife's prior Navy. And when I was in and things would happen, call it a snap, hey, we need you to be here for 24 hours to do something. There was no, I have to spend 30 minutes explaining to you why I'm not going to come home today. It was, I have to do this. Okay. I'll bring you dinner. If you are the support structure for someone, if you have the extremely difficult job of being a spouse, of being a partner, of being a mom, fill in the blank. Pay it forward, right? You can ask the questions when it's done. But in that brief moment of, I need to be able to put my headspace completely on this task, I will give you the time, the love, the energy, the affection back when it's done. And that's hard. Good God, that's hard. Being a male spouse is such an under-talked about or underrepresented thing. But it's hard because you want to help. You want to be there. You want to know, right? If you've ever been active duty and you're saying, hey, we're waiting on the word, right? We're sitting around, we're waiting, we want to know. That's how a lot of the spouses feel. I want to know. I want to know so I can help make the decisions, right? But sometimes that's not an option right then. It will be. It will come. And that request for patience is so important. I cannot emphasize that enough, because when you say, okay, you just say, okay, and then the action is completed, and then you have the post-combat or post-action lull, that is when they can give that back to you, right?
You address an interesting point in that I've had several guests now who had to walk away from their career because of the demands of the family.
Sure.
Not ready to walk away, didn't want to walk away, weren't ready to call the end of the ride, but their family was more important. And the one thing that I've experienced through this is there is no right answer. There's no roadmap. There's no 100% way to make it work in the sense of how do I do a 20 or 30-year career in the military and keep a marriage together? Because unfortunately, far too many of them are then a byproduct or become a byproduct of divorce. And that's one of the things, that I find very interesting is finding those stories with people who made their marriage work. And it's exactly that. It's finding that spouse that when you need to give the 5-second, hey, I'm busy, it's not 10,000 questions. It's Roger that. See you in a little while. And then when they're done with it, so it in a weird way, the spouse doesn't have to be military or former military, but it's that mindset of take care of your business right now. We'll address us later on.
Yeah. I had an adage with my Marines. I said, never get married before you're 25 and never have kids before you're 30. The numbers are irrelevant. The intent behind that is...
Do you never have a pink mohawk before you're 35?
Well, technically I'm 33.
Oh, okay. So you're ahead of the curve.
Yeah, right.
Overachiever.
I'm breaking my own rules. As Shannon and I have gone all over the continent and we interact with people, some of our favorite people to talk to are married couples with vast years. My parents have been together for 40 years. Shannon's parents have been together for over 30 years. The fact that we are married with dual still together parents, we fall into a minority of people in the United States. Something like 9% of all married couples have both parents that are still married.
9% even sounds very generous.
Yeah. That was a swag. We need the tech guy to verify that for me. But the couples that made it through on the military side, 11 years, I think I can name 3. And some of them, they got married when they were 19 and they just made it work, figured it out, right? But for the vast majority, it didn't, right? I didn't. I got married when I was 22 and divorced when I was 26. And I absorbed the responsibility of that because I wasn't mature enough. Right.
But it's the old adage, it takes 2 to tango. The other person has to understand what they're getting into also. Yeah. And I'm not placing blame on either side, but there are those who they have a movie idea of what it's going to be like to be married to a member of the military, a member of the first responder community. It's not that way. I've got friends and one of the things that, you routinely joke about is when you're a junior, first coming up police officer, you're working every weekend, you're working every weekend night. You don't have a normal life. Right. And that's one of the negative aspects because what it does is it forces us into this culture of just hanging out with those that are like us. And we don't branch out because who else has a Tuesday night off or Tuesday off, right. Kind of deal. But it's the same thing when you get married is spouses need to understand that there are some demands that come with this job. And I'm not going to be home exactly when you expect me. Or just because you made dinner or we have plans this weekend, guess what? They may get uprooted.
Right. It is the high performer partner mentality, right? You are a service member. You are a civil servant. You are a high performer just by the amount of hours that you are dedicating. You don't have a 40-hour work week with 2 days off. And it's a little different, but time-wise, it's very similar to, I'm a partner at a law firm, right? I'm putting in 60, 70, 80 hours a week and probably at least one day on a weekend. Or I'm an entrepreneur. I am building my business from the ground up. My business is my house. I go to sleep on my couch and I wake up and I keep going and I'm grinding. So compare that to any profession that has a demand of time, right? And if you find that person who has the maturity to say, yeah, I know, because I'm going to get that back, right? Think about it. If I build a business from the ground up and it goes from essentially near bankruptcy for 5 years to then being a multi-million-dollar producing entity, and then I have essentially my life, or the term, what I hear now is I have financial freedom, right? Money does not rule me anymore. Then we can have as much time as we want together. But that doesn't just happen, right? Period. To gain that level of expertise in the service or the police force, right? You got to grind to get it. And the patience in the front is the reward in the back. And I said very aggressively from the very beginning, I said, I will not have a child when I'm on active duty. Other men could do it. They're stronger men than I am. Fine. But for me, that was just a hard line. And when we found out we were getting out was when we looked at each other and said,
game on.
Yeah. Shannon gave me a pop-up book. I learned how it worked, and boom, we were off to the races.
There you go. Coming out of A&M, what year did you graduate?
2012.
Did you already have a guaranteed flight contract coming out?
So I did what was called Platoon Leaders Course, PLC, and that is a program. It is the only program in the Marine Corps where prior to commissioning, you go to officer candidate school as either a ground, air, or law contract. The day before I was supposed to ship for officer candidate school, you have to go sign all your paperwork and do all this stuff. Secretary, who was prior Navy, 24 years, the saltiest woman I've ever met in my entire life, hands me my package. On the package, very first top left-hand corner, it says contract, ground. And I said, you spelled air wrong. And she said, oh, don't worry about that. Just go. Go. And
just go. They'll figure it out later.
And they will figure it out. And
famous last words. How many Marines have heard that?
And that was my first strongest memory of having to be assertive to authority. Because I told her, as respectfully as I could, I said, I am an air contract. This says ground. If I go with this, there is no guarantee that it will get fixed. We need to fix this now.
It's virtually guaranteed that it won't get fixed.
So we need to fix this now, please, or I'm not going to go. And at that point, I had signed, but I had no legal commitment to the Marine Corps. And she said, well, you can't just not go. I said, what are you going to do to me if I don't go? Take my contract away and not let me become a Marine? What? So we went back and forth for a little bit. She said, okay, hang on. I think I can fix this. Okay, great. She opened the Word document, deleted ground, typed air, and reprinted the first page. Didn't even print the whole package out, just the first page. She said, here you go. I said, thank you. I will see you in 6 weeks. So I had the opportunity to go to OCS as an air contract, completed OCS, then graduated and went to the base.
OCS at Quantico?
Yes. Beautiful place. Mosquitoes the size of hummingbirds. Lovely.
Really wonderful in August.
Yes, it was great. I was April through October. Neat. And then what the contract guarantees you is the opportunity to go to flight school. It does not guarantee you the opportunity to be a pilot. You go, you show up day one, they hand you a stack of books. I don't think they even do the books anymore. I think they hand you a jump drive now. They hand you a stack of books and they say you have 4 weeks to learn a semester master's level aviation information. our first test is in 48 hours. You need to know this book. And that is the first weed out. And so if you have 100 guys who show up, you have IFS, Introductory Flight School, and that's where you get your solo in a Cessna. I had my private pilots prior, so I didn't have to do that. But of 100 guys, you lose about 5 on that one because they get air sick. They can't read a map. They say, you know what, this is dumb. I don't want to do it. Then you go to API, Aviation Pre-Flight Indoctrination, which has a new acronym now. I need the tech guys to verify that for me. But what that is the 6 weeks of fire hose of knowledge. Avionics, weather, mechanics, math, two cycles of math. And by the way, every morning you're swimming in a flight suit and boots to train for the swim test, because most of where we fly, especially in rotorcraft, is off of a boat, and you have to be able to survival swim. And then from that, you lose about 20 more guys. So you've gone from 100 to 75, and you haven't even flown a military aircraft yet. Then you go to primary.
Have you even picked whether you're going to go fixed wing or rotary at this point?
Nope. So then you go to primary. Primary is where you fly your first military trainer. I flew the T-34 Turbo Mentor. It's not even in existence anymore. Now we fly the T-6 Texan. And from there, you'll lose about another 15. And then from primary, you type model select. So that was where I said, I want to fly helicopters. They looked at my grades. They said, you're dumb enough to fly helicopters. You can go fly helicopters. Great. Then you go to then you go to advanced. And advanced is in Milton, Florida, about 45 minutes from Pensacola, which is where you do all the introduction schools. And at this point, you're not losing very many people. You've kind of done the weed out. And there you'll fly the Bell 206 Jet Ranger, and then the Charlie variant's got some better technology in it. And then you go to the fleet. You say, I'm going to fly helicopters. Which helicopter do you want to fly? Do you want to fly Cobras? Do you want to fly Hueys? Do you want to fly Ospreys? And I said, I want to fly Cobras. So I got Cobras West Coast. And then you go to...
Is it a hard battle, or is it pretty easy to get your choice?
If you're number one, you get what you want. And take nothing else away from this podcast. Transition or not. If you are the best, you get what you want. Most of the time, right? That's not an arrogant thing. That's a fact of human nature, right?
It's a fact of the military.
Right. And when you
don't like the way the rules, the way the game's played. Yeah. Too bad, but those are the rules.
Oh yeah. What is it? Be so good that you can't be ignored. Right. Who's the comedian? I have to give the appropriate quotation for that. He plays the banjo. It'll come to me in a minute.
Steve Martin.
Steve Martin. Yes. He was the one who said.
Helps when a podcast host is really old to know when you say a comedian who plays the banjo.
Seasoned, not old, well seasoned, lots of experience. So, and then from there, you go to the replacement air crew. I went to HMLAT 303 at Camp Pendleton. Learned on the whiskey, got qualified on the whiskey Cobra. Went to HMLA 469, deployed with HMLA 469, came back, and that was when I suffered my first injury. I had a crash on a jet ski, had to have my left foot rebuilt, and when I came back to do my transition, I had lost so much time that I had to have the very hard conversation and look at people, and actually had to go to not to Quantico, but to DC, stand before Board of Colonels and say, I can't fly anymore. So
how bad was your foot mangled?
It ended up, I couldn't walk for 6 months. I had 5 screws to put it back together. I had what's called a Liz Frank, and that's where the ligaments in the long bones separate from the short bones. So when your foot is supposed to stand rigid, it goes like this. And we all know that if you're supposed to be rigid, you don't want to be like this.
So many things I can say about that. I'm just going to keep letting you tell your story.
So
You stayed rigid enough to have a baby, so.
Talking about foot stuff, huh? So that was my first punch in the face. So I'm 29, almost 30 at this point.
And you're how many years at this point? In?
8 years at this point, right? So the thing that 10-year-old Matthew had worked for, every decision that I had made for my professional life up to this point ended. I lost my my flight status. Said, you are not a pilot anymore.
Was it because there was still a limitation with your foot that impacted your ability to fly?
Yeah. And so I came back. They stuck me in the Marine Aircraft Group, which is like the headquarters of all of the squadrons. And that was low. Right.
I can imagine.
You go from being...
Well, I can't imagine, but I can empathize with...
Yeah. And I went in a very negative direction because I lost my purpose. I said, what else am I supposed to do? You know, I still wore my wings, but putting a uniform on with wings on it and not flying, it twists you, right? Makes you not feel good on the inside. And so I redesignated and went into what is called Comstrat, which is communication strategy and operations.
When you made this pivot and went to that, was there anything, were you holding on to any hope that you could come back to flying, or was that completely off the table?
So that was, they had given me offers to be like a squadron maintenance officer or like an air traffic controller or things that kept me close to the flight line, but I just couldn't. I realized, saw this in myself. I said, if I'm not wiggling sticks, I don't want to be on the flight line. And some guys did. A lot of guys didn't. We had guys that came out for whatever reason and they redesed and they stayed with the squadrons. I couldn't. And so then I was very fortunate, redesed into Comstrat, and did within a month of finishing that transition school, I was in Kuwait. I was doing something that I had never done before, but what was setting me up for something that I truly love, which is speaking and motivational speaking. And hey, your life is going to have hard transitions, so make the most of it, right? Grow where you're planted. And I got to work with the media liaison team for all of Combined Joint Task Force Operation Inherent Resolve. And I learned that those speaking skills that had been quiet for so long as a competitive poet in high school and briefing in...
Competitive poet?
Yeah. So...
Is that just basically a rapper?
Unfortunately not. No, so there's a speaking competition called Prose and Poetry. Prose is you take a section out of a book and you perform it. Poetry, you take poems, you combine them together and you present them. It is one of the most aggressively competitive, non-physical sports that you can ever participate in.
Is this a Texas thing? Because I've never heard of competitive poetry.
Tech guys, go look up Prose and Poetry. And a huge credit that I give to Shannon when we started this nation travel. For the first month that I got out, I was all over the place. I was so scatterbrained and I was very angry because I found out that I was out of the military after I had gotten out. My medical extension for a separate surgery that I had had got denied. And so 2 days after my end of active service, I got a phone call on the way home from my boss at the time that said, by the way, your extension's been denied. Your EAS was 2 days ago. You are a civilian now. So I went to work for kind of no reason that Monday in uniform, went to my colonel, and he said, there's nothing I can do. You're a civilian. Right. So you take all of the normal transition preparation that you're supposed to get when you leave the service. Nope. So anyway,
for somebody who might be in the middle of this or something similar, when they listen to this podcast, you don't have a right of rebuttal or anything to kind of, hey, wait a minute.
I'm actually going through that right now. There is a nonprofit organization called Lawyers Serving Warriors, and they do everything like this. They do, if you had something that, if you had a discrepancy in service and your service ended, this group exists to try, no guarantee obviously, but to try to get you the appropriate representation and justification. For me, this was the difference between a regular EAS and a medical retirement. There is a huge difference. And for anyone listening, if you are in the process of getting out and anyone in your chain of command tells you, don't worry about it, the VA will take care of you,
trust them. I'm sorry, I don't mean to make light of it. I know you're probably going through a garbage ton right now, and you basically had the rug pulled out from underneath your feet. So I apologize if I. What you're saying is the way that you'll be fine, because everybody who's active duty has never gone through your transition. No one who is still active duty, unless they left and came back, has ever gone through an end of service transition. So everything that they tell you they think they know is all hearsay. It's because they haven't lived through it, right? So, circling back, the VA will do what it can, but that process takes a long time once you're out, right? I've got an estimate 8 to 12 months before I get an answer back. And that answer might not even be what we need, which if it's not, we have to start totally over again. So I say all this to say that if you're going through anything like this, if you are still active duty and you're fighting for any of these things, I highly encourage you to make it your priority, right? Because once you're out, they can't care anymore. They can care, but they can't do anything. They can wish you the very best. They can say all of these things, but the fact of the matter is that once you're no longer under DoD control, you're also no longer under DoD support. And in your situation, the government said, nice knowing you, thank you for your time. Simply from a medical standpoint, in the sense you mentioned a second injury, is it where they're basically saying you're too much of a liability from a medical perspective?
So I had a set EAS date. I had given all of my mandatory obligated service up to this date. And if you are an officer and you reach that end of active service date while simultaneously going through a medical board, the Navy document says you do not get the opportunity to complete a medical board. That's what we're fighting against right now, you are not afforded the same. And it's for everything that we strive for, equality and fair representation in the service and out. It is a very clear, very blatant black and white. If your status as an officer and your time forbade you from getting this. And it's a problem. I didn't know it existed because my situation was very unique. But it is time to shed light on this, because if it happens to me as a captain with 11 years, that means that it's probably happening to a junior Marine, and probably has. And it is unfortunate because they are often told, thanks for your service. And they don't know that these resources are out there, right? Blue Serving Warriors has been extremely helpful with me because there's a lot of documentation and a lot of paperwork, which scares people away. They have walked me through every step of the way to try and get at least the opportunity for fair representation.
So going back to before your first injury, you're flying Cobras, life is what you wanted it. Were you thinking you were going to do a full 20 at that point or even potentially longer or no?
I said I was going to do it as long as I was having fun, right? If it was 8 years, great. If it was 28 years, great. That was what I said before I joined. Right? I'm going to do this thing that is awesome. And as long as I get to do that, I'm going to keep doing it. Right. The money piece wasn't always, yes, it was important, but it was never the primary. No one joins the Marine Corps to get rich unless they become a real estate agent while they're in the Marine Corps, which is what 80% of people are doing right now.
Well, I was going to say, you bring up the point of, the money and nobody joins the Marine Corps to get rich. But at the same token, not everybody's flying Cobras.
That's true. And I remember second lieutenant, I got my first paycheck and it was more money than I had seen on paper in my entire life. And it was mine. Mind you, it was like $2,500, but that was huge for me. And that was a big spark because I had watched both of my parents work hard. You want to talk about 60-hour work weeks? Go be an elementary school teacher.
No, thank you.
This was my mom, right? This was a woman who got to school at 6:30 in the morning and left when the job was done.
Because I think back to when I was in elementary school, and if the parents got a phone call from school, you didn't, meaning me, I didn't have a version of the story. It was an ass whooping because the school called.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine that in 2023 because now it's completely reversed. I'd imagine it's just phone call after phone call from the parents.
Add on to that, my mom was a teacher at my elementary school from first grade to fifth grade. And
lucky you.
And my dad
was she the liked teacher amongst all your friends?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, okay,
she
cool.
was. And my dad was a guidance counselor for all 4 years of high school. I didn't know what it was like to go to school and like there was no phone call home. It was Matthew, report to your dad's office. He needs to talk to you about something. So to bring that back, yeah, I was, as long as I was going to be, it was going to be good.
So you going in, it was simply, I'm hanging on this ride as long as I'm enjoying the ride. If it takes me 20 years, great. If not, so you really didn't have a long-term set plan when you went in. It was literally going to be evaluate as I go.
Yes. And that's the thing that I learned in flight planning, right? You spend 3 days prepping a night flight with weapons and multiple aircraft into an area that you're not, maybe you've never even been before. So 3 days. And then you give the brief, and the brief is as good as it can possibly be, but you still get ripped apart, which is what you need to learn. And then you're walking out to the aircraft. You've got your gear. Hey, let's do this. And someone walks up and puts a hand on your shoulder and says, oh, by the way, there's a restriction here, or there's a weapons system that if you fly within 10 kilometers of, everyone in the flight is going to die. You've got 6 minutes before we take off. Make an entirely new plan. Okay. Right. But that entity right there is what taught me how to hop on and hold on. Right. When Shannon and I met, hop on and hold on was my cocky phrase of, hey girl, I'm moving 110 miles a minute. If you want to be with me, you're going to have to do the same thing. To which she looked,
that would have sold me.
To which she looked back at me and said, yeah, right, boy, we'll see if you can keep up with me.
How long did she keep laughing?
I think she still is. Yeah. But that's what hop on and hold on is, right? At the time, I thought it was just problem solving. But what it really is creative thinking, which you don't get encouraged to do a lot of in the service. You get encouraged to do it this way. This is the manual that was written 25 years ago. It obviously is perfect. So don't question, right? Until a problem arises and it's not in the manual. And now if you only have the manual and that's your only brain space, then you will fail. You will die. You will get shot down. You won't even take off because somebody else who's got the creative juices flowing and thinking is going to say, no, don't do that. Don't. When I was super boot, my second flight in Korea, I had spent all of this time ingesting the book. And that exact thing happened to me. I was in the back seat, supposed to be a backseater, which is the pilot in command for the whiskeys. And my instructor asked me a question about starting the process. And I answered, I said, this is what the book says. He said, are you sure? I said, this is what the book says. Are you sure? And I knew he was digging. Because two are you sure's, you're not sure anymore. And I didn't know.
A little piece of marriage advice. If your wife ever goes to two are you sure's, reevaluate your answer.
Got it.
All right, keep going.
And I continued with my answer and it was wrong. And it ended up with me having to switch seats. So I went to the front seat, which you never want to go to the front seat because now you're kind of a sandbag, right? But I learned more from that because when you're the boot, you're not supposed to think creatively until you're supposed to. And that was my lesson for, okay, you have the technical knowledge. You've memorized every book, every SOP. Good. You have to do that. But now start asking the question, right? Start coming back and saying, am I sure? I don't know. I don't know. Because we're so afraid to say, I don't know, right? I don't know what the next transition of life is going to be. But now for the first time in 33 years, I am okay and comfortable saying, I don't know, but we'll figure it out.
Well, and understand the book, air quote, the book is simply just the freeway. It's pointing out the 4 or 5 lanes of travel that you can go down, operate within these, but it's not always going to tell you, you have to be in the number 1 lane. You know, it's giving you parameters to operate in. And where experience comes in is, all right, I've learned the book. Now, how can I adapt the book?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You said it perfectly.
So now that you're out and there is the outside chance that you could fight your way back in.
No. Nope.
What are you fighting for at this point?
What I am fighting for right now is a medical retirement. You have medical separation, which is, okay, you're out because you're broken, but you're not broken enough. You have separation, which is you've given us your time. Thank you for your service. You've done nothing wrong. Here is your honorable discharge on your DD-214, which is extremely important. I cannot emphasize that enough. Don't lose your DD-214. But there are certain medical benefits and financial benefits that come, as well as an air of recognition benefit that come from the medical retirement. And even if that didn't come, right? Even if they came back and said, no, this is not something you should do. The policy has to be reviewed because to treat someone non-equally because of rank, whether it's rank higher or lower, that's not right. It's just not right. And I went all the way up to headquarters Marine Corps inquiry on this. I said, how is this okay? Because that's what the doctrine is. This is the way we've always done it. Okay. So
great answer all the time. That's how we've always done it.
Right. And so the The goal for me at this point is to at least have it looked at. And if they come back and say, Matthew, it's this because, and it has to be this way, then I'm going to say, does it have to be that way? Right? Who are you impacting? And maybe this helps somebody else. Maybe someone in a similar situation, because for all of the officers and all of the Marines, and I say Marines encompassing all of the enlisted personnel that are getting out every single day, somebody probably went through something similar, or somebody is going through something similar. And if it can be reviewed and updated and made better, right? Leave the organization better than you found it. Great, goal achieved. Achievement unlocked. I can look at my uniform in the closet and say it was worth it.
And I think that's the important thing to take from this is every one of us has benefited from something that somebody else in the past fought for. And yeah, it sucks to be the person who's in the fight. And for the people on the outside kind of looking in who maybe might not be able to completely relate, you're like, oh, what do you, I don't want to say wasting your time, but they don't relate to your story, but it's the bigger picture. It's the next man or woman 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road, who won't even have to deal with this because I've already done the fight today.
You are 100% right on.
So 2 businesses now.
Yeah.
Hop on and hold on.
Yes.
Give me a brief overview of what that company's about.
Okay. Hop on and hold on is our way.
Because you're just the janitor. Basically, your wife runs the company and you're just sweeping it up. Are you even given that much credit?
I don't even know if I'm on the documents.
Okay.
No, hop on and hold on is our way of encouraging people to look at life's transitions creatively, right? Whatever it is, you do not have to be in the military for this to apply to you, right? You do not have to have been in the service, but I guarantee you at some point in your life, you are going to go from where you are to where you want to be. And if we can encourage anything, it's to think creatively in that process. And maybe you're stuck. And you're like, I don't know. I've thought like a Marine since I was 10 years old. I don't know how to think creatively. Hey, this is where we come in. Let us talk you through it. What do you want? What is the life that you're looking at? And what does it look like? Let us help you get there, right? You've got professional coaching. You've got motivational speaking. You've got career counseling, all of those things that Shannon does. And I show up and give her encouragement. So
everybody needs a coach and a cheerleader. Dancer.
We don't use the cheerleader word in this house.
Oh, sorry. Hey, I didn't say tall flags.
Oh, gosh. But that's what we do, right? That's why we are fortunate to know that we have purpose, and that purpose is helping people navigate life's transitions in a creative way. And I don't know what it's like for the police side. But one of the biggest fights that we have on the regular is...
We don't have Cobras.
You should.
We should have a lot of things. We don't have Cobras.
When you get them and you need pilots, dude, let's talk.
Okay.
Losing friends to combat or even training it sucks. Losing friends when they put a pistol in their mouth because they feel like they don't have purpose anymore is indescribable. Giving people purpose, helping them find that purpose, whatever it is. If your purpose is, I want a 9-to-5 job where I can work towards retirement, but I know at the end of the day, I'm coming home to my family and I get weekends off, dude, we will fight for you to do that. If your purpose is, I want to be an Olympic ice skate sharpener so that I can help young boys and girls achieve their goals, hey, we'll figure out where to get you a grinder. Whatever it is, and maybe you don't have it. Maybe you're like, I wake up in the morning, I don't know what my purpose is. I have no reason to wake up. we'll find it. We'll grind for it. We'll seek it out. We'll do values exercises. We'll sit down with you and say, what was 10-year-old you like? I love how you talk about the child, right? What was the child that you were? I haven't thought about childhood me in over a decade. Now I'm out, and this little boy who loves to write poetry and loves the color pink. Well, this was more for my daughter, but it is okay to have a pink mohawk, right? All of that is flooding back. It's great. So that's what Hop On and Hold On is. The second company is Maven's Landing, right? We took my last name, Morris. We took Shannon's maiden name, Lavin. We combined them together to make Maven. Maven's Landing is originally, it started as a concept of tiny home communities, because I look at the house that I had that we're actively selling. It was huge. It was too much. I didn't want all of this. Shannon and I have been living out of the back of my truck for better part of 2 months. And that's still a lot of stuff. But with this, it's a place where people who are in that transition phase, like, I don't necessarily know what I want to do. I'm trying to figure this out, but God, I don't have the motivation. I don't have the encouragement. Come to Maven's Landing, because you're going to be in a space where people are going through similar things, right? Maybe you're PCSing. Maybe you're getting out. This is military speak. Or I lost my corporate job that I had for 10 years. I don't have a pension anymore. What am I going to do? Come live with us. Come live in this space, and let's figure it out. Because when you get creative minds together, or when you get minds together and you have one spark of creativity, it sets fire to the group. And then we can all figure it out together.
Well, and more importantly, though, being in that group environment, you have support. You're not battling through this. And I don't want to say that every instance is going to be a quote unquote battle, but you're not fighting this alone. And for many people, it's the solitude. It's the not even if it's just the perception of being alone, is the biggest battle that they're fighting.
Yeah. Yes, you are. Loneliness, and I'm going to use my own demographic, between men 31 and 37 is higher than it has ever been recorded. Because there is this mindset of, I'm not perfect, or I'm not good enough, or I don't have a reason to wake up. So what do? You dive onto social media. And then when you're on social media, you see everybody's 10-second perfect clip of life, right? And it gets worse. And the friends that maybe you had in high school or college, you've disconnected with. And so in a world that has more human beings than it ever has, we have more loneliness in the United States than we ever have. So how do you break out of that? How do you address that tiny space? You make a place where it is okay to come, where you do not have to have it all figured out. But hopefully, by the time you get reset, maybe it takes a month, maybe it takes 6 months, you've got that clarity and you can go, and we can send you out into the world to go conquer, right? Hey, I was a Marine for 10 years. What are you going to do now? I don't know. Come spend a few months at Maven's Landing. I'm going to go be a professional chef. I'm going to go be a professional yogi. I'm going to go be a professional poet. I'm going to go and do nothing for 3 months while I travel the world and just see. And then you bring all of that knowledge and wisdom and information back, and you can share that with the next group that's coming through, right? This is what Shannon and I were talking about on the way up here. Like, what do we want our message to be? We are going and figuring all of this out right now. We are going physically going around the world. We just went around the United States. We did 8,500 miles in less than a month. Now we're going to go to start in Denmark and go all over Europe, because we want to see these things so that we can build this package when we come back or stay. And we put all of this together because experience leads to wisdom, and wisdom leads to progress. And if we can do that, life achievement, right?
Do you already have a community or multiple of these Maven's Landing communities in place?
I did the experiment in my backyard, and the concept worked. We're leaving California, so we're selling that, and we're taking the financial gain from that, and we're setting it aside so that we can go and see other successes and other failures. I want to go to communities that have failed. I want to see why, so that when we get to the point where we look at each other and we say, okay, this is the spot. This is where we do Maven's Landing 2.0. We have all of the information that we can gather. Obviously, we're not going to be perfect, but we've gathered as much as we can, and we can apply that at 2.0 and make it as damn near close to perfect as we can, because it's going to serve a greater purpose.
In a perfect world, how many of these locations could you have, and what would be, in a geographic standpoint, are you thinking like basically right outside of almost every single military base?
When we wrote the business plan, it was within 45 minutes of each major military installation. Perfect world, it would be 10 minutes. Geography doesn't allow for that unless we just like ground off an entire neighborhood and start it over. And putting people on the street to build something else kind of defeats the purpose. But having that a little bit more distance, we've realized actually is a positive. You're making a physical separation between you and work, right? You go home, and mind you, this is assuming that we are doing a military focused landing. It doesn't have to be, because we've opened it up to all people in all transition. But our focus, our passion is obviously supporting the military side, and especially the housing market, which we can talk real estate too, is in such an aggressive flux right now. Buying a traditional home that's 30% over what average price should be at an interest rate makes it almost unobtainable. A 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house in Oceanside, California is now over $1 million. At a 6% interest rate, that's a $9,000 a month payment. No one in the military, aside from maybe a colonel whose wife is also a colonel who has a functioning business,
no kids,
right, is going to be able to afford that mortgage, right? So with Maven's Landing, we make it obtainable. There's a negative connotation that comes when you say, hey, this is transition housing, right? This or this is affordable housing. Immediately people are like, it's cheap, it's junky. We don't use that verbiage on purpose, because that's not what it is. It's obtainable housing. We look at what the real cost of living is. You have a tiny home that is a fraction of the cost, and we encourage you purchase that home so that you have an investment in something and you're not just throwing away rent. You purchase that, and then when you go to your next duty station, you can either take it with you or you can sell it to us. And then we give you something back so that you have some level of preparedness to go to your next phase. And by doing it that way, our subset is, we want you to be financially capable of living the life that you reasonably can obtain, right? And the military housing scam, it leaves you nothing to do that, right? When you live on base housing, you give your entire BAH minus a few $100s. Or when you go to off-base housing, they know what your BAH is. And mind you, BAH is only supposed to cover 95% of your housing. But if if you are strategic and you are thoughtful in where you choose to live, you can set that aside. You don't have to throw all of that into the cost of housing. And it's your money, right? It's part of your paycheck. So if we can find a way to combine that with the way of making it obtainable for the service members, then we've won.
Well, something comes to my mind when you mention that you can get the BAH, but you don't have to necessarily use it if you think strategically.
Right.
I'm thinking from that transition period, if for whatever reason you're saying, oh, well, hey, I'm going to base my house payment on getting this. And then tomorrow I'm not in the military and now I can't make my house payment.
You hit the nail on the head. God, you should do this for a living. I hope somebody sponsors this podcast. I want to help you get sponsored. We'll see what we can do. Yes, because I've lived with a BAH payment, but if every month that is totally gone, that's completely taken, after 4 years, what have I saved? What have I put aside? And mind you, you still have your regular payment, and you should be strategically putting that away. But imagine if I could take a larger portion of that so that when I hit my EAS, I have, 6 months to live off of instead of what the average service member, the average enlisted gets out with. They have 45 days of savings. 45 days. As of stat last year, 38% of American income goes to their housing, right? That's astronomical. Average mortgage right now is somewhere between $2,800 and $3,500 a month. How fast can you burn through $3,500 a month when you don't have a paycheck coming in, right? Now add a baby. Now add 2 babies, right? I'm about to add 1 baby, and it's terrifying. But our mentors made sure that we were as prepared as we could be, right? So yes, you hit the nail on the head with, if we can make this preventative while you're in, then when you're out, when that transition comes, and not just military, right? When I have a full-time job, I'm setting more aside. I'm preparing for if that layoff happens, right? Or if another job opportunity presents itself, or you have a partner who becomes with child and maybe they can't work. Maybe you're not in a place that gives appropriate maternity, right? Hey, it's all right. You're out. You are better prepared for that financial transition. And if we can do that at Maven's Landing, which is a huge part of it, right? It's more expensive to live everywhere else. We've calculated the cost so we can keep it lower and more obtainable for you and your family while you're here. Then boom, when you're out, hey, you've built up a little bit more of a nest egg.
Well, I definitely appreciate your time, and I wish you the absolute best in going forward and getting this off the ground. I know y'all got to get on the road, got an airplane to catch heading out to Denmark.
Yeah.
But I do appreciate your time. Any last piece of advice you want to throw out there?
Yes. If you want to get a hold of Shannon and I, our Instagram is @hoponandholdon. You can also send us an email at hoponandholdon@gmail.com. Even though we're going to be international, we are still reachable. If you are coming up on a phase or a transition in your life where you think some creativity would be beneficial, please send us a quick message. We will see how we can connect. Additionally, a subpart of HoHo is Shannon's graphic design. She did all of our logos. Woohoo! She does all of the sticker work. She can knock that out for you and hopefully find a way for you to progress that element of your business. And all of that to be said, I really want to say huge thank you. This was great. I absolutely loved it. It was a phenomenal conversation. I wish you the absolute best of luck in in this endeavor as well.
Look how you took over the podcast at the start, and now you're trying to take it over again. It's my podcast. But no, I do appreciate it. I appreciate your time, and I wish you guys all the best.
Absolutely. Thank you so very much.
I appreciate you watching. But before you go, if you like the video, please hit that subscribe button. Also, any comments are appreciated. Thank you.